want to begin by thanking Carol Ann for coming up with the idea of utilizing the pastors in the area to do these brief devotionals for the folks out there at Southminster. I've got several members of my congregation that live at Southminster. I'm from Sharon Presbyterian Church. It's a delight always to come out there. And by the way, I think the food in the restaurant there is outstanding. My text today is Psalm 8. And before I read it, you'll probably notice that I'm not in my office. In fact, I'm down on the coast right now of South Carolina, and one of my favorite places to be when I'm not at work, when I'm on vacation, the marsh. And my wife and I say, only half joking, that that's where God lives. We just think it's spectacular. Now, our psalmist in Psalm 8 is going to speak about some portion of spectacular creation, but instead of looking out or down, he's looking up. We're going to talk about that. O Lord, our sovereign, how majestic is your name in all the earth. You have set your glory above the heavens. Out of the mouths of babes and infants, you have founded a bulwark because of your foes, to silence the enemy and the avenger. When I look at your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars that you have established, what are human beings that you are mindful of them, mortals, that you care for them? Yet you have made them a little lower than God and crowned them with glory and honor. You have given them dominion over the works of your hands. You have put all things under their feet, all sheep and oxen, and also the beasts of the field, the birds of the air, and the fish of the sea, whatever passes along the paths of the sea. O Lord, our sovereign, how majestic is your name in all the earth. Well, I want to tell you that this psalm is the psalm that always comes to mind in my most frantic moments, in the moments when I'm feeling more discouraged than any other. This is the psalm. I think it has to do with the majesty of God. But there's a very powerful dual point in the psalm that I think is good for all of us all the time. And that is, first, in looking at the vastness and the glory of creation all around us, did you notice that the psalmist's first thought was how small he is? That he seems so insignificant in the grand glory of everything in the heavens and the expanse that seems to go on and on and on. I sometimes feel the same thing when I take a long view like this across the marsh and think of the intricacy of all creation, all of the animals, all of the teeniest tiny little critters and surprising sea creatures of the types that I have never seen before. I also love looking at the stars when I'm out at the coast and away from city lights and just noticing the vast expanse as it goes on and on. It's a pretty easy thing sometimes to feel very small. The psalmist, you may have noticed, speaks about an enemy at the beginning, and that may be why he is feeling helpless and frustrated. But then he remembers, and this is the second key element in the psalm. The psalmist remembers that God has created humanity just a little bit lower than God himself. What an elevating thought. You know, whenever we feel powerless, it's easy to feel completely insignificant. And yet we're reminded by this psalm that we're not only not insignificant, but everything that we can see in the sky above and the marsh beyond, every bird of the air, fish of the sea, animal in the field, we have dominion over all of this. It belongs to our watch care. We're in the middle of a pandemic that none of us created, that make all of us feel a bit helpless. We all recognize that our economy is at risk, our personal health is at risk, the health of our families is at risk. The overall social health of our nation is at risk, as well as nations all across our globe. Whenever there are things that overwhelm us, whether they are personal or whether they are corporate or national, whenever things overwhelm us, it's very easy to feel insignificant. But the psalmist challenges our fears, challenges our doubts and our sense of frailty, and reminds us that we, by God's own hand, are the crown of creation, and that each of us in our own way play and have played and will continue to play wonderful, important roles in God's plan for us all. To me, the ultimate key element in this psalm is how it begins and ends. O Lord, our sovereign, how majestic is your name in all the earth. And then once more at the end, O Lord, our sovereign, how majestic is your name in all the earth. Before us, with us, and after us, God is our sovereign, and He has created you and me of great significance in this vast universe of God's own hand. Thanks be to God.